Okay, we're trying this again. Hey, this is Xander. I have gotten a little bit back into the teaching mode of stuff, and maybe it's just because I wanted to make some content, but I'm here to talk about the 600 championship points bar that Pokemon just announced for the 2023-2024 season about a week ago. This is mostly as it applies for North America, but if you're watching this from another region, welcome. I don't know if I'm going to be making content again. I might vlog some of Japan. I might forget. I'm going to be there for a while, so hopefully I remember to take some videos or something. But when it comes to this 600 conversation, I've talked with a lot of friends about it. I've gathered a lot of different opinions. There's been a lot of different voices on Twitter talking about the different parts of what 600 looks like. And so I wanted to put all this together into what my thoughts were for the 600 year. So let's start off, firstly, come on PowerPoint, with some things that don't matter. This is a little bit weird to start off with things that we don't care about, but the first thing that doesn't matter, in my opinion, is how many players got 600 championship points this season. If Pokemon said the invite was going to be 600 for this season, a lot more players would have tried to get 600. The best finish limits for this year are also different than the best finish limits for next year, so it truly doesn't matter at all how many players got 600 this year. Don't go looking at the leaderboards and worry about that. On a positive side, though, League Cup quarters are over. So the best finish limit for League Cups is 6. You can play in as many League Cups as you want during the year. Only the top 6 will count, but it's not the 2 per quarter nonsense that we've had in the past. I don't know how this is going to apply for stipends for internationals, so don't look at me for that. You might just want to check on Twitter. You'll hear something from someone as it comes up. But for those just going for their 600 points and chilling, League Cup quarters are over. So, let's take a look. This is how I got to 442 championship points this year. This is all of the events that I went to for CP, with the bolded events are ones that I've gotten CP from. Everything not bolded, I did not get CP at. So, from regionals and ICs, I attended 8 of those in total, and ended up with 390 championship points, only hitting my best finish limit at 5 of 6 regionals. So I played in 6 regionals. The only one I didn't get points at was Baltimore. It was my first tournament back since 2019, and I could have played out for 6-3. I thought that my friends were going to drop in Q, but they didn't, so now I feel foolish, because at the end, I was searching for 30 championship points that it could have just been from Baltimore if I had won the last 2 rounds. The world may never know. But I had a really great showing at regionals this year. After Baltimore, I didn't miss day 2 at a regional. It's the best I've ever done at regionals, getting a minimum of top 128 from every event that I had, and then obviously spiking Fort Wayne, which was really great, almost having the chance to play fellow Tennessee player Noah Sawyer in finals, but unfortunately Roxanne still is a liar, right? Either way, went to 2 internationals. I did go to EUIC, met a bunch of wonderful people there, sucked it up the week right after I top 4 to regional. That's just some Pokemon for you. But at NAIC, I did get a 256. I made day 2 and had some unfortunate luck day 2. Didn't draw as hot with Turbo as I needed to. But 390 points from regionals and ICs feels really solid, especially that the invite was 350. I might have not needed to attend a cup ever. Unfortunately, because these are not in order of how it happened, I did end up going to 5 cups, and I really stunk it up at cups. I played Lost Box Kyogre at every single cup that I went to and got really close a couple times. I whiffed I was like a card off of a Kyogre combo at a couple different League Cups to make top 8, but I still ended up getting points at 2 of the 5 different cups that I attended, getting at top 16 at a cup that was large enough to have top 16 points, and getting top 4 at a cup that hit top 4 points. So this is 442 CP, and this is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 weekends of playing Pokemon, not counting the fact that regionals are multiple day events that you're flying to and stuff like that, and cups are still driving distance away, right? So still a lot of time and unfortunately a lot of finances to get to this point, which we'll talk about somewhat as we move towards 600. Now, going back and forth between OBS, this stuff is annoying. Oh, and that ended me here. Top 2% of North America. Incredibly proud, considering this was my first season back in a very long time. Really had no clue that I was going to end up at this point, but it's just I'm really proud of that accomplishment. It was like 90th on the leaderboard or something. I would expect that a lot of the people who surrounded me would have ended up towards 600 had they needed to, but hey, that's 442 CP right there. Now, this is what I've been talking about with some friends, is how I would probably go about moving 442 CP to 600 CP. And I think that's the biggest question for me about how much competitively I'm going to be playing next year, because 442 is an incredible season. That's a really great amount of championship points. Top 2% NA, top 2% globally. Never would have, I would have taken that deal at the beginning of the year in a heartbreak. Or in a hot minute. Jeez, why did I say heartbreak? I don't know. Rusty, trying to go through this quickly. So there we are. First off, regionals and ICs. I'd much prefer to go to regionals over cups, just because you see more friends there and there's higher return on investment. And also with day 2ing 5 of them this year, I feel like it's a pretty good spot for me. Notably, I did not hit regionals BFL. All the points that I had were from 5 different regionals, not 6. I got points in an IC, but that is in a different category than regionals. So if I was going to go to 600, I would need to finish my best finish limit somewhere. Even 30 more points puts me in a decent range that I could finish out from cups, which we talk about. Notably, I have put EUIC as not dropping. Obviously, the mistake wasn't dropping. The mistake was starting off 2-4 at EUIC. If you have the ability and the desire to go to more than one IC, especially if you're on the East Coast like me and going to wherever they decide EUIC isn't a crazy ask, it's kind of like a regional and a half for payment-wise, they are worth so much more championship points than the regional is. A top 256 at Nationals, or at NAIC, was 80 points, which is top 16 at a regional. So ICs are stacked. If you're able to go to more than one IC, if you're desiring to go for 600, I think that's the best way to do that. And hadn't I got another, not even a top 256, they bumped kicker to 124 now, and I think that it's 50 or something. That's a crazy amount of championship points. Over half the field at NAIC would have, or almost over half the field would have gotten some amount of points. So if I can convert any amount of points here, and then finish a regionals BFL, that puts me probably at 80 to 100 more CP than I have. And also, I'm making a joke about Kyogre here, you can ignore that. But with League Cups, having 4 more spaces in the best finish limit does mean that even though you have to attend more events, that you're able to figure out, you're able to get these random smattering of points here and there. Even if you get a top 8 at 6 different League Cups, I think the people talking on Twitter about winning 6 League Cups are completely unreasonable. But if you're just talking about top 8ing 6 different League Cups, even if you got to go to 12 or 15 throughout the year to do it, which would stink, but that's still 150 championship points that you can put towards your invite. If I had 4 more top 8s here, plus the numbers I said earlier, I'm well over 600, personally speaking. So that's how I would imagine my plan for 600 would be. However, there was this amazing graphic that I have to plug from Beach Court Pod on Twitter, where they talk about how people get their invite. There's a lot of people that like to go to locals and grind up locals, or people that like to go to regionals and run those up. If you look at this and then you go through mine, I'm definitely more of a regionals grinder than a local grinder. I would much rather have my Saturdays at home and maybe be focusing on bigger events where we split costs on gas and whatnot than just driving to a League Cup on my own. But if locals are more your speed, or you live in an area that's really hard to travel to a lot of regionals, especially if you're in the Rockies or somewhere that you basically just have to fly to every regional you want to go to, these locals being an option for you definitely add up. It was Garrett Williamson that made the point, I believe, that technically if you max out all of your locals, you need 10 less CP from regionals and ICs than you did last year. Now, winning 6 cups is still really difficult. It's an incredible accomplishment, even if they're smaller, and winning 6 challenges, because you got to attend 6 challenges to do that. But that is a path, and if that's a path that you want to go for, and a path that you think that you have the time and desire to do, then go for it. I see a lot of league challenges on weeknights, which helps lower some of the burden from that. But if it was me, I'd be much more about this regionals camp, and I guess you guys can't see. Oh, no, you can't see my cursor. I'd be much more about this, where my regionals finishes, if you look at regionals, this has 1 top 32, 2 top 128s, and 3 top 256s. I far exceeded that. If you go back and look at the numbers I had, I was at 390 from regionals. And this layout only has you at 250 from regionals, but it does have you getting top 512 at 2 different ICs. That's still an incredible amount of championship points, though, that you can add up and then just go to an occasional cup here and there. For each first place or like a higher finish that you would have at a cup, these lower finishes would move up. Or every top 256 that you turn into a 128 is one less league challenge that you have to go to get championship points. So I think that there's a lot of ways to, like, even a small bump in points, like just a 40 to a 50 or a 50 to a 60, those things add up. And so I think that that's a really great way to do it. This budget competitor is also really interesting. I like this addition that they did where you're not going to as many different regionals and whatnot. It's proving that there is a way to get into this season as a, quote, more casual player or someone who's just trying to go to events as is convenient to them, but still asking a lot of your placements from the different events that you're at. Just wanted to plug this graphic, though. It is great. I need to check out some episodes of their podcast, but this graphic definitely has already impressed me from their team. So let's move forward. Concerns with 600 championship points. This is specifically for me as a person with a full-time job whose PTO is really messed up right now. They're changing a lot on us, so it's really hard for us to get time off. 40% points at cups, like the chance of, if you look back at the cups that I went to, I got points from 40%, 2 out of 5. So moving that into going to more cups is still really hard if that's the ratio that I continue attending on. I would hope to improve that, but variance is variance. Best of one is what it is. It's not a bad thing. I'd prefer to play best of one cups, but it just means that you lose twice and you're out for the whole tournament, unless it has like a top 16, just depending on if your cups are big enough. So that's still really hard if I'm going to try to improve finishes from the local level. And it's just more weekends traveling. Like I said, with the time off, it's really hard to be able to go to all of those events, even if you're just going to a cup every other Saturday or something for a while just to get some points up. That's still a lot of time you're spending away from home. And if you don't have buddies to go with, and can get really boring and lonely and whatnot just to scratch up like 20 or 25 CP, I don't know if that's worth it to you, right? But looking at this graphic, this is another one from Twitter. In case people want it visualized, here are the 12 locations of Pokemon Regionals this year. I have all these concerns about going to regionals and whatnot, but I live here. I live so easily accessible to all of this stuff. This isn't me, like, complaining, or I don't want people to see this and see it as, like, I am entitled. Or, no, it's actually the opposite. It's still a lot of traveling, and I live so close to so many events. What I'm trying to say is I don't even know if this is possible as I live close to them. Imagine living in this area. Or even if you're in somewhere like Florida, you get one regional as a freebie, but then you're flying to everywhere. If you're playing on the western side, you get a couple, but a lot of the championship points opportunities are really distant away from you. And so if you're trying to go for that regional level, it's just going to be really hard to consistently do that unless you're able to just fly to a ton of events. It's just more of a cost thing. So I think this is a really valid point. I understand that you got to go where the target audience is and like where you can get convention center space and all that stuff, but it's still just something that, like, I am grateful to be living here, and I still don't know if I would be able to hit 600 through the convenience of how close regionals are to me, if that makes sense. So we're going to kind of switch directions here as we move forward. But Xander, just play for fun. This is a very funny tweet that I made sure to include, but it means nothing if I can't play for an invite, but then you're playing for all the wrong reasons. I think that this is a very valid take. If your relationship with Pokemon has gotten so much about just like the pride of getting an invite, like maybe you should remember kind of what brought you into the game. But also, the invite does mean something. I'm incredibly proud of the fact that I got an invite this year, especially for a season that I started off thinking would be an off year. I think this is a really, like, I'm really happy with the fact that I got an invite. And if I was playing next year, I would want to get an invite again because I, like, think that I'm at the point that I could get 600, and it does mean something to me to play for an invite. However, there's an amazing tweet from Summer Curse on Twitter. Wonderful streamer, plays a lot of Unite and stuff. I'm just going to read what she says here because this summarizes a lot of what I feel is true about the topic. Here's a take from someone who grinds invites some seasons but hasn't in others. There are years I was able to and those I wasn't. Right now we're seeing a lot of top players tell everyone to just play for fun and not the invite, which is absolutely right, and I agree to that. However, as they say, It's understandable to see these players who get invite after invite and have a hard time listening to their advice to just enjoy the game the best you can. So let's look at it this way. It's absolutely okay and valid to feel left out of the race by the new requirements. What she's saying here is that the players who are saying just play for fun are all at the skill level that they're going to get 600 points and not sweat it. Like, they're not concerned about... They're in the true top 1% of this game. And I know that it sounds silly for me being in, like, the top 2% versus the top 1%, but, like, everyone who was close to a top 16 this season is easily going to get the 600 championship points. So their logic of just play for fun, they could play mediocre decks all season and still get 600 points, like, without even really breaking a sweat. There is definitely skill in this game. There are people who are showing it more than others, and I think that those playing at the top level have every right to say just play for fun, because they can just play for fun, and they're so much better than us that they're going to get the 600. So let's continue. I'm on point 3 if you're following along. It is also valid to understand. It's also valid to understand and recognize that this is a hobby and that invite chase requires many privileges to go after, especially with what I've said about finances. I hope that you've seen that a little bit. When it feels like there's nothing else to earn, it's easy to be caught up in the unavoidable culture of the desiring the invite. TPCI literally centers the entire competitive scene around this one thing, that is Worlds. That leaves it up to us to make individual goals, make friends, create memories, and find ways and enjoyment in our one way, which we all should do anyway, but what else can be done? So the summarization here is that if I go to a League Cup as a player not going for 600, I get a nice cute mat, I get some product, and that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. The mat's really cool. I have like 3 of my mats from League Cup wins on my desk right now. I can't really move my camera to show you. But like, that is something to be proud of. But it's also that you win that cup and you're still like only 1/12 of the way to getting your Worlds invite. It feels like the mountain is so high up if you're trying to shoot for that, right? Point 5, we can ask that TPCI create more adjusted regionals pricing based on the prices and attendance we see. We can work towards creating our own local circuits or even asking TPCI to help us with this. There's a lot we can ask of them, but we also need to do a few things. I definitely think that, obviously most players would agree, that regionals could definitely extend pricing, at least with product, to further down in the player total. If you're like top 128 in the event is still like higher than the top 10% of people in your walk, and especially for those who are getting 256 and making day 2 but just having to play 6 more rounds of Pokemon just to end up with the same as the people who got to enjoy their Sunday, there's definitely a disconnect there. So I think that with Pokemon having regionals and ICs at the size that they're having, which is massive. I remember I was scrolling a Facebook post and it was like from St. Louis 2017, 2016, and we were all flipping out that we almost had 500 players. It was 499 and I got 12th, and I was like, this is insane. How could Pokemon ever get this big? And Orlando this year was triple the size of that. And so when regionals prices have gone up because regionals venues have had to get bigger and there's more staff, I understand those things, we maybe could see a little bit more pricing to incentivize players on the individual level. Let's continue. As players, we have a lot of ego in this world race culture. Very true. We tend to cast out the idea that this game can be fun, and we ignore people with any other goals and dismiss their skill. I'm certainly not free of guilt in that situation. The way we tear others down and cheer others on sets a mindset into motion from new and impressionable younger players. We can set a standard that you either chase it or you aren't trying, and that's where community can make a difference when TPCI doesn't. We can all rethink the way we support our friends and those we interact with in the community. Support every success around you with the excitement of the person who achieves it. Support your friends' goals and encourage setting goals outside the invite too. Beyond how we talk to each other, our tone and body language are loudest and are defining factors to the environment around us. The world's chase is hard, and it hurts to feel left out of that race. Those top players aren't wrong and can still support our own enjoyment. So from here, we need to try to remember as players that, like, you can play for fun and go to a cup and win it, and if you're not going for an invite, if that's the only tournament you play in for the whole season, you still accomplish something. And that's like really cool and really great that you're able to do that. But it's also hard from the people who are going for 600 that's like, we got to do so much. Like, there's such a culture around grinding. And if you saw from the top 16 players who were joking the whole like, we're free on Twitter, obviously they enjoy playing Pokemon, but the system incentivized them to go to so many events that it became difficult for them to do anything else. And I think that a lot more people who are shooting for 600 are going to see that. So this is saying, like, make sure that you set your goals event by event. Like, Kyle Sablehouse was messing with me where at one event I was like, I needed the top 32 to, like, I just really wanted to make money. I've been playing this game for a decade and I've never had to finish making money in the money era. And so I was like, I'm like 8-4 or like 8-3-1. I think I'm locked for money. And he was like, why do you not try to win the tournament? Like, why are you setting the bar so low? And I guess that's right, where it's like my goal, or right and wrong. My goal was just like, this is what I want to do, and I want to top 32 the tournament. But also, there's something to be said for celebrating a higher success and not giving up and settling on your like where you're at. I don't want to attribute all of these opinions to Sombra's because I'm kind of spewing off of the points that she's making here. But I think that it's definitely cool to say, like, I want to day 2 this event. I've never day 2'd an event before. I'm going to ID into day 2 because I've day 2'd the event. And that's it. There's a tweet that I wish that I had found, and now that someone said, like, the people who are telling you to play it out on round 9 because that's a winner's mentality are the same people saying just have fun when the invite's 600. I think that's a very interesting point where it's like, are we playing for fun? Are we just trying to day 2 to play more Pokemon to give ourselves a chance at more rounds? Or if we're trying to win the tournament, then maybe there is something more to playing for fun. So, closing thoughts. And this is just some more ramblings. Pokemon can make the invite as easy or as hard as they want to. There's no rule that they have that says, like, this is what the invite has to be. They can have, quote, easy years and hard years depending on venue space. I think that Yokohama is going to end up being a little bit larger than they had intended. And so, like, they can decide to make Worlds a less inclusive tournament as they desire to, because that's just what the invite bar is. And especially, nobody deserves an invite. It's really easy to get into language of, like, I need 100 more points for my invite, and forget that it is, like, my potential invite. It's the chance of you getting invited to Worlds. It's not that they are obligated to give you that. This year, they weren't obligated to lower it from 350 to 500. They chose to do that. And if it had been 500 all year, nobody would have been saying, well, Pokemon should have lowered the invite this year. Like, that's just nobody would be going around saying that because they have the ability to set that bar. It's also important to remember that Pokemon Organized Play is a part of the marketing team. Oh, go back. Pokemon Organized Play is a part of the marketing team. If their market design is to make the invite bar higher so that players want to shoot for it, have to go to more events, then be my guest. They don't see as much return on the tournaments as you might think, but they see returns in products being opening and stuff moving onto the secondary market. People have to open those products for singles to get on TCG Player or whatnot. So as the game is growing, they are making more money than ever, but they still want to see that. And lastly, with prizes not increasing, the kind of only real thing for players to do to search for pride in the game is to kind of go for the World's invite, as like the cash from single finishes isn't like really tied towards your success in the event. Am I falling into capitalism in this mindset with my hobby? I don't know. But it is hard to like go to events, and as much fun as it is, like seeing my friends and stuff like that, like occasionally throwing money to the wind just for a 128, which does add up in like points for a World's invite. And you can see like people are turning a profit off of that, selling their spectator passes and some of their competitor kit and whatnot. But as a luxury hobby, it still is kind of hard to like see that money go to this thing if you're trying to get a return, whether your return is enjoyment or financial, and like see that those prizes are off. I don't know if this helped any of you guys. This is stuff that I've been going through in my head. So if you enjoyed this ramble, like, comment, subscribe, repost on X because it's not Twitter anymore. Share it on Facebook. Put it wherever. And if you are going to Japan, I will be there. I'm a day 1 player, so you'll see me. At that point, I will be there from the 7th to the 18th. So make sure to say hi. Really enjoyed you taking the time if you got to this point. If you want to see more content, let me know. I think that I'm still going to do a breakdown of the tournaments that I played in this season, kind of going through what lessons I learned through this invite. Might be a little late on that, but if you think you enjoy more content, let me know, and I'm going to hit stop recording. Have a good day. Bye.